Hey there, Cameron here. Welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. Today we're going to take a quick look at how to do this Espalier or two-dimensional training against a frame for your fruit trees. Let's get busy. So today we're out here in our front yard test orchard, and we've got all our little small trees here. We see everything was really blooming and looking really good. And then we look back and we see this pomegranate that I've got trained, if you can see here, in a very two-dimensional space up against this frame. And this is called Espalier. Espalier is a French word based on an Italian word, means something to be able to lean on. Is it Espalier? Espalier? I don't know. I took Spanish. Esparrito. Sometimes you wonder how and why would you do something like this? So I want to talk to you about a couple of reasons. As you can see here, this is really effective. We've got all these little fruit trees, and then using that two-dimensional space back there without needing a whole round area, was able to make use of that two-dimensional space against that block wall. It's going to provide beautiful coverage so that we're not just staring at blocks all the time. We get a beautiful tree, big showy blooms, lots of fruit, beautiful, just hanging like ornaments off of the tree. Works out really, really well in a very limited space. And if you're like me and live suburban, you don't always have a ton of space to be able to grow the fruit trees that you want. So this Espalier method is really wonderful in like an urban, suburban type setting. So the way that it's set up here, in order to be able to cram in another tree into this front yard test orchard, in the space of just a single car, I don't know if you can see it, it's maybe 8 feet across, maybe 20 feet long. I've got 8-9 trees here, and in order to be able to get one more, I put it up against the wall. In this case, you know, there are a lot of things that can be used for this. Let's talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about the shapes that can be had, as well as some of the material or the framework that can be used for something like this. If you look closely, you'll see that we've got it planted at the base there, and then as it grows up, it kind of follows this kind of fan shape, where I've allowed the shape to grow out and have the main branches be up against the wall, going every which way, keeping decent spacing between them. And this is what's called essentially like an informal or a fan shape. It's not very structured. It's just trying to find these connection points to attach with like gardener tape. Like down here, for example, there's some gardening tape. Over here, there's some gardening tape to hold it to the wires. And this is a very informal structure. I'm going to show right now a couple of pictures that show some of the more formal structures, where they do these different step ladder type structures, or they have one that goes up and over and then back up again. And so those are more formal structures. A lot of times you'll see those in formal gardens, things like apples, and you could do it with citrus, lots of different types. In this case, I've done it with a pomegranate. One of the reasons I chose this site for my pomegranate is because, one, it's southern facing, so the fact that it's going to get sun the entire time, pomegranate's really a sun-loving plant, and so it's going to get sun throughout the day. Even though this is kind of a shaded area right here, it's going to get sun throughout the day. And I'm wanting to show you this pomegranate today as opposed to when it's full of foliage, is because I want you to be able to see the structure. That's essentially what you're doing with this Espalier method, is containing the structure and training the structure to fit against a two-dimensional frame. You see that? How it barely comes out at all. Here's the wall here, here's the stuff that's tied down here, and then the branches come out not very far. In fact, I'm continually training this back, so that way it's not really going out past this point. It grows out a little bit. I've pruned it after the season, so that way you know, it doesn't interfere too much with these apples here. And I'd get more fruit if I let it grow out further. Let's take a quick look at how I've assembled this particular frame. There are a few ways that can be created, but the way that I did was with these essentially this conduit and guide wires going across, and I'm going to show you how I constructed that. So it's not actually attached to the wall, it's attached to a frame that's just in front of the wall, and I'll show you from the backside what that looks like. So let's start at the bottom. What I essentially did right inside here is I pounded in a couple of pieces of rebar. Then I got this metal conduit, which I spray painted this sand color so that way it would blend in with the wall a bit. If you look closely here, then I've got these this bolt with like an eye hook on it and a nut, and on that I attached this galvanized steel wire, and I ran that to the other side. And the reason I did that was because as I tighten this nut, what it'll do is it'll create tension on that wire, and that's worked really well. I put this in, gosh, about 6 years ago, and it's looking really, really good. As we go up from there, you'll notice that I've got a few steps here. I've got something just at maybe 10 inches, then up by another maybe 1.5 feet, and then another one at about another 1.5 feet, all the way up to the very top of this thing. I've got this going across. I'd like to be able to show you. So here it is on this side, the espalier. It's coming back here. You see that there is a little bit of space behind here, so it's not directly touching the wall. And then what I've got back here is essentially a counterweight. Took a 2x4 and screwed in some eye hooks and attached wire to those. And the wire is attached to the bar here. So that way it keeps this pulled back against the wall as opposed to just letting it float free, because we have some pretty strong winds that come through here, and it would be easy for that to just get whipped forward and damage the trees. So that way it keeps the frame in place, and that has worked really well for us over the years. Not everybody has one of these, but I've got a guard lizard right here, making sure that things are kept all quiet on the home front with my Espalier Pomegranate. Keep up the work, lizard. I'd like to show you in another direction how this looks. See, there's the eye hook with the bolt and the nut, another one up here, moving on up, each one all the way up. And so the idea here is that it's giving us a number of places to attach these branches to. And this thing has grown and been pretty consistent all the way through. When it comes to pruning an espalier tree, you really are wanting to keep it against a two-dimensional space. And so anything that's really wanting to creep out of that or crowd inside here, I'm needing to come and clean up. Sometimes we get these suckers that go up and I have to go and cut them off. In this case, I don't want this to get any taller than I can reach. Again, this is a pretty informal espalier because of the way that these types of pomegranates grow. They grow more as a shrub than an actual tree. But I go through essentially and try to keep the height regular. I also keep it from coming out too far because I don't want it to interfere with our fence over here or go into my neighbor's yard. But again, espalier is going to require more maintenance to keep pruned, but not a whole lot more. You're just having to be a little bit more aggressive with it and paying attention to stuff that's going to come out and trying to mitigate against that so it doesn't crowd out other things in your orchard. One advantage that espalier trees have is that they are able to get uniform sun across the entire tree. Because there aren't these branches that are hidden in the middle of a tree somewhere, you're getting a lot more uniform fruiting, a lot more uniform flowering, and you're able to see all of it. So these end up being display pieces. So in addition to being great for a limited space like we have here, the amount of sun exposure that they get is also a big benefit. What ways have you seen trees espaliered before? Have you seen them in a formal method where they're just the step ladder method, or they're this kind of candelabra, almost like a menorah type pruning or training? And what kinds of fruit have you seen this done? Or maybe you have some experience. Have you done it with citrus or with apples or with figs or any number of things that you may have even seen at your local nursery? Maybe this type of method will work for you. Maybe doing an espalier thing makes this a bit more accessible for you. And I hope this video has given you some ideas on how to potentially do this sort of thing. How it might look in your setting. And so, appreciate you tuning in. We'd love for you to subscribe if that's your thing. If not, that's okay too. Appreciate your likes and the comments below. And whether you've got one tree in your orchard or 500, until next time, stay busy.